What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we got a new video. Today I'm going to be going over what you need to look out for if you're planning on buying a C7 or C7.5, S6, S7 or A8L. So we're going to make this short and sweet, but I will cover all maintenance options you probably want to go for in this car, things that you can do to the car and how it's been reliably. But first we're going to go over the differences between the different trims, so the S6, S7 and A8L. First thing is the C7 is basically the chassis designation code for the S6 and S7 that are pre-LCI, and then C7.5 is S6 and S7 after the life cycle impulse or LCI. Main difference you're looking at between an S6 and an S7 is just the body style. Both of them are sedans, but the S6 you're getting that more classic sedan, and then S7 you're getting a sportback, so you do have that hatchback. Now in terms of the engine and the transmission, the C7, C7.5 have the same thing. Both use the same 4.0T twin turbo V8, and they both have a 7-speed DSG transmission. The only difference is I think the stock horsepowers for the C7s are 420, whereas the C7.5 have like 460 horsepower. Now with the A8 it's a bit different. I think if you just get a normal A8, that's actually going to be the 3.0T, so that V6 supercharged. But if you have the A8L, that's going to give you the twin turbo V8. So the A8 is kind of just like a more luxury or executive sedan. The A8 actually comes with a different type of transmission, so you still get the 4.0T, but you're going to get a 8-speed torque converter transmission. So that's actually going to be a ZF 8-speed transmission, which is actually a very good transmission. They ship very fast, especially with the tune. That's the main difference between all three of the different models with the base 4.0T. Keep in mind, if you get an RS6, RS7 or an S8, those are all going to have an elevated 4.0T, which have different internals and bigger turbos, and those are just in general a whole different monster. But I'm going to be going over just the base ones because that's what my experience is and what I'm more familiar with. So as I'm going through my car showing you guys what the C7 S6 looks like, I'll just be giving a rundown on some of the maintenance items. But the big ticket items are, first things first, the suspension. There are no options on the S6, S7, and I believe the A8L to have non-air ride suspension, so you're kind of stuck with the suspension. I think the RS6 and RS7s, I've read that you can have normal non-air struts, but with the S6s, S7s, and A8Ls, you're stuck with having to deal with air suspension. And when I say deal with it, I mean having to deal with something like this. The air suspension airbags constantly deflate on these. They're very common failures. I don't know if it's just specific to these cars or just air ride suspension cars in general, but I just recently replaced my front air ride suspension. The back one's going out, and who knows until the driver's side starts going out. A lot of people have experienced issues with those at varying miles. The next item that fails on these cars is the PCV, so the oil separator. That's actually a very common issue with these cars. Same thing I think with like thermostats and then water pumps as well. There are also some minor issues with the bushings on this car. Out of every car I've owned, which I've come from 2 BMWs, a Mustang, actually 3 BMWs and a Mustang, this car, all the bushings were super worn. So from the control arms, the bushings go bad super easy, and it's just something you're gonna have to be paying attention to. So control arms are probably a big ticket thing that go out pretty commonly. Another thing is motor mounts on these vehicles. In particular, the motor mount for the passenger side goes out, and that's because these cars actually have a cylinder deactivation system where the car will put the engine into a 4-cylinder drive mode, so it deactivates the driver's side half of the motor. It's called cylinder on demand. It generates an uneven amount of wear on the passenger side motor mounts, obviously. So with that, your passenger side motor mount is most likely going to fail. Mine just failed like at 60,000 miles. Another common failure item, which is actually under or serviceable under a recall from Audi, is the oil separator. So the oil lines that go to the turbos have a filter in them that's supposed to filter out debris from the oil getting into your turbos. It's supposed to be a good thing, but it's been noted that that separator actually gets clogged, and it prevents oil from getting to your turbos and blows a lot of people's turbos. What they're gonna do at the dealership is just swap it out and put a clean one with a revised version that has, I think, bigger holes, but generally just best to have it removed. So if you can go there and yourself and take that out, which a lot of people do when they're upgrading the turbos anyways, that's generally what's recommended by most of the 4.0T owners. One last thing that's specific to the C7s and C7.5s, because they have that 7-speed DSG, but the mechatronic unit on the dual clutch transmission is actually, it's kind of a half and half. Some people make it seem like it's a known common issue. Some people don't experience it at all. I haven't experienced it yet, but I'm at 60,000 miles so far in my car. And some people experience that the mechatronic unit fails and then they have transmission issues. They can't drive it, or they can only use like first, third, and fifth and seventh gear or something like that. It's something weird. It's kind of just like, it seems like a random occurrence. So keep that in mind. You know, just with these cars, I would say it's good to just have some money saved in case anything does happen, and you know, you can just get that part and you don't have to really, you know, scramble for money or put a big dent in your pocket at that specific point in time. I think that really covers it for maintenance. Bushings from the control arm, transmission, mechatronics, PCV, and the air suspension. So those are going to kind of be your common issues with the C7, C7.5, and then D4, I think, which is the A8 chassis code. One honorable mention for things that go wrong with this car is actually, I would say, the drive shaft. You know, being all-wheel drive, having a lot of torque, these things launch like monsters. So a lot of people have experienced snapping their drive shafts. That's just something to take into consideration, that these cars do have, seems like, kind of here or there with their drive shafts. Maybe it depends how people are launching them. I don't launch my car too much. I don't go hard on it. If I do launch it, I'm not brake boosting and I'm not using launch control, and I make sure that I have the traction off just so I'm not snapping my drive shaft, or, you know, messing up my sport diff, which is another thing people that say that, you know, launching their car, they experience those issues. So just keep that in mind as well. Now we'll go ahead and talk about the options I recommend you should get whenever you're buying this car. One option I would recommend right off the bat is the heads-up display. I actually don't have it on my vehicle. You can easily tell if there's a heads-up display by having that screen here, but that's something that I would say is actually very useful. I'm pretty sure it'll show you the speed as well as your RPMs. The next thing I would recommend is actually making sure that you get the Bang & Olufsen sound system. The easiest way to tell that is just, obviously I have Bose, but this section right here will actually be a speaker that rises up. So if you just turn on the power, this part will go up. Same with the right side. The reason I say that is because the Bose speaker are pretty bad. They don't sound premium at all, and I think the Bang & Olufsen just is going to sound a whole lot better. So I really recommend you get that. The next thing I would recommend is having the sport option. So having the sport option is what gets you these bucket seats. You can tell if a car has this easily by just looking at the seats. If it has the base model seats, a lot of people prefer those because they're actually more comfortable and they massage your butt and stuff, but I just think these look a lot better. And then lastly, of course, I would recommend that you get one option with the carbon fiber. I think they all come base with carbon fiber because that's all of them I've seen for the most part are carbon, but I just really recommend you get the carbon trim. It's literally everywhere. It's here, 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 on the sides. It's even in the back seats on the doors. But I mean, the carbon just looks so cool. Another option you can have on these cars is to have like a fog light here. I personally think it looks better like this. I would prefer to black that little chrome trim out, but you know, if you have the normal grills like this without the fog lights, I think it just looks cooler. It looks more aggressive, and honestly, if you want to open up all those little honeycomb grills, you can get a lot more airflow going through into your engine bay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about the modifications for the C7s and the D4 vehicles with the 4.0T motor. We're going to go over mods you can do and then the stats that you can expect from this. So in terms of performance modifications, if you want to just go with the basic build, all you really need is intakes. So intakes are different. There's going to be some that just kind of stop here and utilize the OEM inlets that are silver and just swap out your airbox. You can do that if you just want to get more sound from the turbos, but if you want to get full on performance, it's recommended to get turbo inlets. So inlets and intakes, or just get them all in one piece like I have, but that's going to maximize the airflow. It's also going to be good if you plan on upgrading your turbos. So I still have the stock S6 and S7 turbos, but you can actually swap these out for RS6, RS7, and the S8 turbos. There are some slight differences between all of those, but you're really going to get a huge bump in power once you get tuned with those. You can get, I think, upwards of 600 to the wheel, and that's going to put you into the 60 to 130 and around the, I would say, low 7 seconds here in Texas. The next thing you're probably going to want to do is just updating the intercooler or heat exchanger. So it's actually down here. If you were to look at the front of the car, it only goes up from like to that tiny spot right there to like right there. So it's like super thin, and as you would imagine, these cars are very prone to heat soaking, so a lot of people upgrade that. But I mean, this is a very hot engine. It generates a lot of heat in the engine base, so you are going to get a lot of heat soak. So updating the heat exchanger, if you're going to go roll racing or a bunch of racing back to back to back, that's going to be necessary. The next thing people always upgrade are their fuel pumps. So the pistons in here are actually get upgraded so that you can run E85. That's going to be a huge power giver. If you're not interested in that, I think you're fine with the stock ones for 93 octane. Some optional things for sound are like downpipes. A lot of people actually don't recommend you do downpipes because they say they make no power on this car. I did it anyways. I mainly do it for the sound. Every turbo car I've had makes power with downpipes, so I don't know. I don't think it's a myth that it doesn't. I'm just saying I would prefer to have it. I'd rather have this car sound good to me if that's what I need to do, because the stock system is actually very restrictive. The last thing, all you really need is just a good tune. You know, DS1 is a very popular tuning platform. It's similar to like boot mode or MHD from BMW, where it comes with a bunch of base files, or OTS maps I should say. You just load what you need, the specific octane and what mods you have, and then you can make pretty good power with that OTS tune. I'm actually tuned by Jackal Motorsports, who offer a tune for the base model turbos as well as upgraded turbos, so R7 sized, because that's probably as big as I'm going to go with these. But also TCU tune is recommended once you push more power. You don't want your transmission clutches slipping and then causing premature wear, so make sure you get that taken care of. But other than that, this car is as simple as just, you know, turbos, intake, and then heat exchanger, which isn't really needed. It's just optional if you want to go that far. But that's all you really need. You can run it on 93 octane and you can make that 600 wheel on these cars. So in general, you know, the aftermarket support for these cars is actually very good. The car's pretty solid. The engine itself is actually very reliable. I haven't seen anyone blow motors from, you know, putting too much power on these. So I think that kind of shows the headroom that the 4.0T has. You know, it's a really fun car. It's a nice daily. I do daily drive it. I've been daily driving my car for over a year, and the only issues I've had in the year is the front right air strut going out, the rear right one now going out, the passenger side motor mount is out, oh, and the control arms, which I got from Rock Auto for pretty cheap. So nothing else so far. Knock on whatever we can, but you know, it's a pretty reliable car, very comfy, and very easy to make some good power on it. So that's really the rundown for these vehicles. You can make good power on them. You can find them fairly cheap. Mine wasn't too bad. I bought it with like 47,000 miles for like $26,000. You can find some with even higher miles. There's a lot of people running these cars hard with 100K miles on them and they're still going strong. I mean, that's really it that I can think of. Make sure that you just keep out for those couple things. If you guys have any comments, drop them in the comments. That's really all I could think of for now.